Good. All right, looks like everybody's here. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your midday briefing. There will also be the evening briefing, and tomorrow morning there shall be a morning briefing, just so that you know. First of all, sorry about the hiccup with the vegetarian lunch. There will be vegetarian sandwiches available after this briefing out there in the breakout. And for the dinner, there will be vegetarian options, not to worry, that has been fixed. So now I'll talk you through some of the tips on how to make the most out of this experience for yourself and for the future projects. You'll find a lot of these tips in this brochure. Some of them you won't, so please do pay attention. If you haven't tweeted or done other social media things yet, this is the one, the only, the official hashtag, so please use that one going forward, nothing else. Yeah, let's get on with it. Talked about that? Excellent. So the first thing to do is, now that you know which team you're in, who is in your team, is to share expectations from yourself with the rest of your team, to make sure that you know why you're here and what are you working for. So for example, some of you are here because you have a technical background, you have a technical company behind you, and you want to make things. Fantastic. Some of you are here to share experience, to hear about what other non-profit or humanitarian organizations are doing. That's fine as well. But so long as your team knows what to expect from you and what you expect from your team. Second, it's a very compressed experience. So it is basically a project, so we very strongly advise that you use it like you would use any project team, which means you should assign roles to every one of your team members. There should be one project lead, somebody who follows what everybody else is doing and knows what's going on. Because this was a slow start, right? Now things are going to pick up and go faster, just so that you know. You would need to have a couple of people who are doing the thinking, those are the strategists, a couple of people who are responsible for the final product, and you will need researchers. In addition, just to keep in mind for tomorrow's speech, you might want to already appoint the person who would be doing the speaking during your pitches, just to give you a heads up. Again, you'll find some of the stuff in the booklet. We've been doing hackathons for about 10 years now, and there's one thing that reliably kills the teams. It's the endless discussions. Don't get stuck in endless discussions. Seriously, you don't have time for it. There are several simple things you can do to avoid discussions. Very simple one is timer. Concrete example, now it's 1:06. You need a decision by 1:10. Whichever decision you have by 1:10 is the one you go for. At that point, you have a hard stop. This is what we do. We move on. Clear? Right, excellent. Roman voting is a very useful tool when you need to come to a decision. Roman voting is very, very simple. There is a yes and there is a no. There is no maybe. There shall be no maybe. Right? This is how you get out of the useless discussions and get to move on. One last tool is the urgent versus important matrix. Very simple. Urgent, not urgent. Important, not important. Guess what? If something fits into urgent and important, you do it. If it's not in that one quadrant, you don't. Focus is the absolute key to success in any hackathon, especially this one. Now you have an idea. You came up with it during the ideation session. You've discussed it over lunch, so you have something in your hands. That's great. What you need to do next for 1 hour or so, we very strongly advise you to refine it to make sure you have something final on your hands. So there are 3 steps we suggest for you to keep in mind. First is to stretch your idea. There are multiple things, multiple ways in which you can stretch your idea. So for example, how I can do it better with technology. So what if you were to add AI, what would that do? What if you were to add robotics or drones? Can you do it with quantum computing? I don't know, maybe not. But try. But also, aside from technology, also think about different business models. What if this was a crowd-funded effort rather than paid by a single provider, supplier, donor, whatever? So try different ideas. If you need more ideas, find somebody in a library t-shirt. We'll try to help you. Don't hesitate to ask. Ask your neighbors. They might be working on something very comparable or very different, which is where a better stretchy idea would come from. Then you need to focus. You need to go to a very specific definition of your idea, and for that, we very strongly suggest that you pick a concrete goal towards which you're building your product or project, whatever it is. So for example, as an exercise, imagine what it would look like in 2 years from now. So not what you have right now, a bunch of post-its, but what would it look like? What would it feel like for the people who are using it? What is it, the end product going to be like? And write that down on a post-it, put in the middle of the table, because that's something you'll be going to back time and time again when you need to make these decisions, when you need to make decisions fast. But keep in mind also that it's not written in stone. You can, it's just a post-it. You can peel it off, write it over, and put it back on again, right? But it's something that is your anchor for every decision you're making, for every bit of content you produce, for every bit of research you do. Clear with that? Mm-hmm. Seems like it is. Or is it just lunch? And everybody's just zen?
Lunch, mostly.
Mostly lunch. Cool. Good to know. I'll step it up. So, next part, that's when it gets a bit more technical. We suggest that you map out your idea. So it's not enough just to write it out in one sentence on a post-it. You have to put a bit more detail in, because then you need to know what you need to be doing. And there we suggest 2 different paths for the connect and the tech tracks. You know which one you're on, I presume. So if you're doing the connect track, we strongly advise first the canvas, then the map. I'll go through both tools very, very quickly. If you're on the tech track, first the map, then the canvas. So the 2 tools work in conjunction. The canvas gives you the bigger picture. So it's technically the social business model canvas. Who's used it before? Who's used some variation like a business model canvas or a lean canvas? It's all basically the same thing, right? It's a disciplined process for writing down your thoughts about a kind of a project, right? It's all it does. But it will help you structure your work for the next few hours. And the user journey map basically maps out the users of different kinds through the process and their interaction with the product. Good definition, good definition. Thank you, Frank. Who's used one kind of a user journey description before? Okay, so also quite a few hands. So in each group, there should be at least one person. But in case there isn't one, we'll take you through the ideas. If you can't agree, if you can't come to a consensus, voting is our best suggestion. If you need a tiebreaker, if you need somebody to come in and listen to your arguments for another 5 minutes, pull in Frank or pull in Tricia. They're really good at making sure that teams come to a conclusion at speed. Yeah, write it down on the post-it. Right, so the social business model canvas, again, both documents are available in the Sachs room. Yes, never mind. So these canvas are there to help you. So basically the way you fill them in is one block at a time, one post-it at a time. In each of the blocks you put in the knowns and the unknowns. So what do you already know for a fact? And what do you think you still need to find out? Right? It's very, very simple. If you want to find out what the unknowns are, imagine, the 2 years down the road, what the project looks like. If it didn't work, why didn't it work? What were the barriers that were insurmountable? What were the accidents that happened? That will give you the idea of what the unknowns are to put into the canvas. Are you with me so far? Okay. Let's give a very, very visual demonstration. So that's what a canvas looks like with one post-it. That's what it looks like with 2 post-its. Keep in mind that the post-its have been added in the appropriate order. There is a sequence to these blocks. Please follow it. If you have any questions, pull in Tricia, Frank, or myself, or your neighbors who've done this before. Right? The idea is that you fill this entire canvas before you do anything else. If half the post-its say, I don't know, that's a great result already. Right? You try to, you keep on refining it and filling it up as you go through the process. So every time you add a new bit of knowledge, if you talk to an expert and he or she tells you something you didn't know before, stick it right on the canvas. Right. Okay with canvases? Excellent. So prototypes. Again, here prototypes for this particular event. It would be great if it turns on, lights up, and does things. However, the main point of a prototype for this event is testing it. It's not what it does, it's what other people tell you about it. So that's always just to choose a very small aspect of the solution. So you use the journey map. Use the journey map to identify which particular part of your solution you're going to be prototyping today for the rest of the day. So that's what the user journey map looks like. Again, slightly different color thing on the top. Here's how you go through it. You add post-its. Again, it's fairly explicit. It's fairly straightforward. The question is putting in all the different users that you have, which is the column number 1, and all the outcomes that they expect in the column number 2, and then filling in everything that's in between. How do interactions happen? And where you see the most interactions, that's the part that you need to prototype for most effect, because that's the part where you get the most useful feedback. You with me so far? Mm-hmm. You're being awful quiet. Mm-hmm. Lunch, okay. More coffee, it's over there. Right. Again, I can't emphasize enough, a prototype is not useful if you haven't shown it to other people and if they haven't tried it and they haven't asked you stupid questions about it. Again, just to also shake the idea of what a prototype is, if what you're working on is a public campaign, for your prototype could be a poster or a Facebook ad that users would see about that campaign. It's very easy to prototype a poster. You can use a Canva or PowerPoint or a piece of paper, right? If it's a digital tool, if it's an app, well, you create a touch point, a screen in an app, and that's what you prototype. You can do it on paper. You can do it in Squarespace. You can do it in mockups. You can do it in Balsamiq. There's a gazillion tools out there. All of them are good. The only thing you need to keep in mind is, will it be useful for people who are giving me feedback on this? For giving feedback. Can they understand it? Can they read it? That's the only part that matters. If you're doing a service, if you're describing a service of some kind, describe the flow of the service. And yes, you can prototype it on paper, or you can do a role play. We don't care how you show it to people, so long as you can show it to people, they can understand what it is and give you feedback on that. This is not rocket science, none of this, but it's something to make sure that everybody's on the same page as to what you're doing, the things you'll be doing for the next few hours. Cool so far? All right. So, timing. Just to keep in mind that things progress. So all the decisions around the idea, all of the descriptions, all of the canvases, all the user journeys, they all should be done by 15:30. From 15:30 onwards, what you're doing is really knuckling down on building whatever it is that you need to build, describing it in as much detail as possible, and so on and so forth. It's building and research. So writing things down and talking to experts. One thing to keep in mind, and that's one item I find to be always most vexing, it's the assumptions. We all come with assumptions that are built in. We think, for example, if somebody lives in Africa somewhere, that they have no access to the internet. It's true for some parts of Africa. It's not true for the rest of it. Right? That's just one of the assumptions. You assume that everybody who lives in Belgium likes beer, right? Because there's so much of it. Not entirely true. I've met people who don't. Believe it or not. So please, when you say something, when you write something down and everybody just agrees, that is a good sign that this might be an assumption that everybody is making at the same time. So that is maybe something that you might want to check with experts who actually have been there and done that, and they might know the reality. You're still clear on this, everything? All right, good. There will be a test later. Right, so when we say talk to experts, it's not only talk to people who have an official badge that says expert on it. Everybody here is an expert in something. We all have professional backgrounds. I see faces that look like they have no experience yet whatsoever. I see some faces that show quite a lot of it. So please talk to everybody. If they don't have actual profound professional experience, 20 years of it, they are a user for a lot of things that are quite comparable to what you're doing. So please do talk to a lot of people. In fact, to make sure that you guys do talk to a lot of people, we've foreseen a half-an-hour slot where we encourage you to go out and talk to everybody else in the room. So it's the cross-pollination moment. And at 5 o'clock, we expected 2 people from each team, minimum, to stay at the table where you're at. And 2 more, or the rest of the team, to go out and explore and talk to other teams to see what they're doing, to see how they're doing it, and tell them what you're doing in exchange. Right? And that should give you ideas on some things you're missing in your idea. It should give you some ideas on how it can be stretched further, and so on and so forth. Right? So 5 o'clock, please mark it in your calendars. And again, last thing I can say is that we're here to help. If you see somebody, if you are puzzled, if you don't know what to do next, if you don't know how to do it, if you see somebody in a blue t-shirt, pull them in. If they're not the right person to help you, they'll know who can. Any questions?